The year was 2005, and a service called YouTube had just launched, and rumours had been circling around Palm that they were about to launch a new product that would shake up the mobile market yet again. In May of 2005, Palm revealed their first in the line of mobile manager category PDAs, the LifeDrive, its name given for its ability to store, as they phrased it, your entire digital life on its impressive 4GB microdrive. And for the time, it was impressive. It was a big jump, considering the next larger size PDA was the Tungsten T5, with just 256MB, which was released in October 2004. The most recent release, just a month before the LifeDrive, in April, was the Tungsten E2, sporting just 32MB. Other than their differences in storage, there wasn't a lot of other differences between them, all running the same Intel Xscale processors, and the T5 and the LifeDrive even having the same 460MHz PXA270 processor. They also both have the same 320x480 TFT 16-bit colour screen, as well as the same Garnet Palm operating system. So to call it a new category of device may have been a stretch, when it could have been considered the natural successor to the T5, but that wouldn't quite have mustered the same amount of press coverage. So going around its features, it has an SD card slot for further expanding the memory, as well as SDIO accessories, such as the camera. It was also the first to include a 3-way power switch, which would allow you to enable a key lock to prevent accidentally turning it on, which would later appear in their line of Trio smartphones. The only other thing on top is a place to house the telescopic stylus, giving it a place to live when not in use. On the side is the dedicated voice memo button and a mic, which was found on many a PDA at the time. The other button on the side is rotate the screen orientation, due to the lack of accelerometer. But the ability to rotate the screen was a relatively new feature at the time. The base has a headphone socket and a reset switch, and the Palm multi-connector, which was introduced on the T5. It was also the first Palm to include both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, without the need for an extra Wi-Fi card. The back has a grille for the small yet reasonably loud speaker, and the front has a 320x480 screen, as well as 4 application buttons, and the 5-way navigational control. Unlike with many earlier models of Palm which sported a permanent graffiti area, the LifeDrive has a virtual one, meaning it could slide out when needed, and it didn't take up as much screen real estate. This was first introduced on the Tungsten T3. It also made the switch to Graffiti 2, which allowed for the improved input of characters, as you could use more than a single stroke to make them. The one I had came as the Showtime Limited Edition, meaning it came with a pair of Philips headphones and extra software for ripping DVDs to a format for better playback. It also came with everything you'd expect from a standard LifeDrive, such as the slide-in case and a dock for easy syncing on the desk. This is by far my favourite Palm. I used it so much. Having the ability to take films and TV shows with me anywhere I went, especially when travelling, was pretty amazing. And also having something in my pocket that could connect to Wi-Fi was huge at the time. I also connected via Bluetooth to my phone, allowing me to get and receive text messages. So it really was my first experience of having a smartphone, before smartphones were really a thing. It came with Documents to Go, an app for viewing and editing Office documents, which had good compatibility, even when compared with Windows Mobile at the time. P-Tunes, or Pocket Tunes, is their MP3 player, so you could pretend that your LifeDrive was an iPod. As well as all the usuals, calendar, tasks, calculator, notes, and a web browser, Blazor. It even had a version of Solitaire. And as well as these built-in ones, of course you had access to Palm's vast catalogue of third-party apps. And a few of the standout ones for me are the emulators. There's been a number of different ones ported to Palm over the years, including ones for the NES. And as you can see, it runs pretty well, and combined with the physical buttons, can be a nice way to play. There's also ones for Game Boy, as well as Mega Drive, TurboGrafx, and there's even one for the Atari ST. Some of them can be tricky to set up and occasionally crash. I couldn't quite get DOSBox to work, so I may need to look at a different version, or try to configure something differently. But all in all, the emulators I have played with emulate well, or at least well enough to have fun with. And it's nice to have a huge number of titles to dip into, rather than just the games that have been specifically ported to Palm. And some of the big ones that have been are Bejeweled, and the classic Broken Sword, a game I fell in love with on the PlayStation, and have since played on a number of systems. Paris in the Fall. Okay, it may be lacking the incredible voice acting of the original. Also, that beautiful opening video may now just be a slideshow. It still manages to be a rich, entertaining game, especially for a handheld at the time. Although I couldn't recommend this version as your introduction to the game, with it lacking so much, and trying to do so much in a small screen, I definitely can recommend it as a fan of the game, as a way to relive the game you love on the go, which I stand by is impressive. And it can be controlled either via the touchscreen or using the physical buttons. And it had the ability to be used as a USB mesh storage device. It really was a versatile tool to carry around. So what made the LifeDrive unique? The microdrive. Not to be confused with the magnetic tape-based ZX microdrive released in 1983 by Sinclair. The microdrive, first created by IBM, is a 1-inch miniaturized hard drive that contains magnetic platters, just like a regular hard drive, and was designed to fit in a compact flash Type 2 slot. They were originally sold under the IBM brand, but after their merge of IBM and Hitachi hard drive divisions, they were marketed under the Hitachi brand. The term microdrive is trademarked, so when Seagate released drives with the same form factor, they were only ever officially known as 1-inch drives. As a technical feat, microdrives were very impressive, but their lifespan was very short. They were created as at the same time solid-state memory was nowhere near the same capacity, especially at the same price. But as we know, advancements in memory fabrication meant it only took until 2006 until compact flash cards could exceed the capacity, performance and price of microdrives. The LifeDrive wasn't the first device to be released sporting a microdrive. Apple had seen success with the iPod minis, and they were only on sale for a year and a half, unsurprisingly getting replaced by the flash memory based iPod Nanos. The microdrive wasn't even the smallest mechanical hard drive to see a commercial release. That title goes to the Toshiba 0.85-inch hard drive, which took miniaturization even further, while still managing to match the microdrive's capacity, going up to an 8GB model. And whereas microdrives are based around compact flash cards, the 0.85-inch drives were based around multimedia cards, the predecessors to SD cards, so closer in size to them, albeit a little thicker. For a size comparison to a microdrive, check out the Janus Cycle video where he compares them directly. This impressively sized drive was used in the Nokia N91, released in April 2006, which saw both a 4 and 8GB version released. And unsurprisingly, spinning discs in mobile phones didn't catch on. The LifeDrive didn't last long on the market, being discontinued in January 2007. It wasn't a big seller, and there was a number of factors for that. It was an expensive device, and what with memory prices falling, it wouldn't be long before it's cheaper to buy SD cards, and a cheaper PDA such as the T5. The TX was also released in October of that year, which also came with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in. Although out the box, 2GB was the largest SD card a Palm device at the time could read, given that it would need to be formatted to FAT16. You'd need to be swapping SD cards to match the LifeDrive size. Although to keep ahead of the curve, Palm could have used larger drive sizes, which were rumoured at the time, they were also hit by being pulled off the shelves in Europe, for the devices not meeting the regulations for the heavy metals used inside, which must have been a big blow for their new line of devices. But just as fast as memory prices were falling, the mobile market was changing. With the dawn of the smartphone era approaching, it was a time when each new device felt like it made a leap in a different direction, and it didn't take long for most devices to quickly feel obsolete. So looking how the LifeDrive stacks up against the competition, which are released quite closely either side, they all have the same X-scale processors, with the TX being clocked slightly slower. The LifeDrive boasts the biggest battery, with the added perk of it being easier to replace, being connected to the logic board with a connector rather than being soldered, although the LifeDrive would have needed a bigger battery due to the power-hungry microdrive, which obviously gives rise to the bigger capacity, with the TX actually being the smallest. All three have the same display, Bluetooth and infrared, and just the TX and LifeDrive come with the Wi-Fi built in. So is there much use for a device like this nowadays? Well, as you can imagine, most phones cover pretty much everything it can do and more, but if you're up for a slightly less connected device, there's still a lot of fun it can offer. As the microdrive is based on a compact flash card, it is possible to replace it with a much larger one. I've seen people successfully use 128GB cards. Although not all cards are compatible, there is a lot of research still going on in the Palm community to work out which ones do. With the card installed, not only do you get the increased space, but if you've ever replaced the disk drive with an SSD, you'll know some of the speed improvements you can get. And if you use the Palm LifeDrive app, you can also increase the RAM, so overall you get a massive improvement in performance. And if that's too invasive for you, you can run an app called Power SDHC, which allows you to read FAT32 formatted cards, meaning they can be up to 2TB in size. This obviously works with a range of Palms all running the 5 to 5.4 OS. The other fairly recent tool helping Palm devices stay useful is FFmpeg Palm, an FFmpeg port that's specifically tuned to help transcode to the correct codecs that's most performant on Palms. Again, this isn't limited to just LifeDrive owners, but when combined with Power SDHC or a bigger compact flash, it can make a decent little dedicated video player, if HD and HDR aren't things you care about. I love how the Palm community is still so active in developing new things and also welcoming new users to the platform. So whether it's just nostalgia being that the LifeDrive is the best Palm I've ever owned, or the LifeDrive really is the best ever Palm, I'll let you decide in the comments. If you agree, let me know, and if you don't, let me know which one you think's better. And if you enjoyed the video, why not subscribe for more, and most of all, thanks for watching.